Hello and well met. This is Layron with the Fantasy Grounds Academy. Today I'm going to be taking a look at Fantasy Grounds. This is version 5.0. And if you weren't aware that SmiteWorks has made Fantasy Grounds free now, so you don't have to buy the base program. Essentially $0, you download it, install it. And to be honest with you, if you have practice and you kind of learn how to use Fantasy Grounds, you can enter most of the data yourself. The only thing you might be missing is artwork and such, and you can probably source or find your own. This is I'm doing for my personal uses. This is not a commercial product, although I'm going to D&D Beyond and grabbing the information from the D&D Beyond portal, and then I'll input that into Fantasy Grounds using best practices. One of the more challenging things to do is to create yourself some sort of structure. This will make things go a lot faster, and it won't seem as laborious and time-consuming as it can be. So the first thing I usually do is I'll work on artwork, and that's probably the most time-consuming thing other than creating items and NPCs. So I'm going to go to the D&D Beyond webpage, so you can see this in the portal on the bottom there. I'm going to make sure that I have this so you can see this, and let me go into bring up the page itself. So I'm going to bring this over so you guys can see what I'm looking at here. So this is the basically the D&D Beyond website, and what I'm doing is taking the information from here and transcribing it over to Fantasy Grounds. I've already taken the liberty of basically putting this into Canva, which is where I copy and pasted the artwork for the actual book itself. So I'm going to bring up Canva, and as you can see, I've already started working on this. So I'm going to take Canva and kind of show you my process here of what I usually do when it comes to this sort of thing. So Canva is a free and paid application. They just recently acquired the Affinity Publisher suite. So if you like Affinity products as opposed to Adobe, they just recently kind of combined forces. And I think this is a really good piece of software or application to use because you can use it online. And it has a portal, and it has a lot of assets, and I can't say enough about Canva. It's done me right. It's good for social media. It's now good for publishing. It's really good for creative types. So this is the cover art for Astarion's Book of Hunger. So what I had done is I had previously went on my cell phone, and I kind of took a screen capture of all these art pieces. Now, I don't know the quality of the art that they use for the D&D Beyond reader from my cell phone. So what I had done is I went through and I systematically took the images from the web page and pasted them into individual pages so that I can format these to be used in Fantasy Grounds. Now, they do have a best practices in Fantasy Grounds if you're going to be doing conversion work, or if you want your content to be kind of polished. So what I'll do is I'll refer to the Fantasy Grounds Atlassian guide, and essentially what this is like they're kind of like their instructions, how to troubleshooting articles, that sort of thing. But if you go to the developer's guide, you'll notice that there is a section here, and they have this product guidelines. So I'm going to click on that. And if you scroll down, it gives you an idea of what size images that you would use for creating content for Fantasy Grounds. So this is for publishers and such, but if you are going to make homebrew content, or you're going to do something similarly for your own conversions, you might want to try to follow their best practices, because this will help you in the long run, especially if you're going to host other individuals, to make sure that your content is going to not only look nice, but also work well for other people's systems and their network. So you got to kind of have that in mind if you plan on hosting players on Fantasy Grounds via the internet. So for images, such as player maps, they give you these minimums or the maximums. And then for for like the GM map and for images that are just going to be showed kind of like a handout, these are the best practices essentially for that. So they say 1K by 1K pixel resolution for embedded reference manual images, that sort of thing. And then 2K for images that are meant to be shown separately or zoomed in. So this is kind of like your best practice and your standards. And then they get into charts, timelines, images that should be zoomed in to see portions of it. And then they get into printables and so on and so forth. So they even talk about the indicators, the tokens, portraits, those sort of things. So this is a really good page to refer to if you're uncertain of how the content should be formatted. So what I have right now is that all of these images right now are 1024 by 1024. That's the dimension of this square. So for consistency, I'll probably keep it that way. Although I do sometimes take and I'll have like a profile picture, which is a square one, and then I'll have a vertical, and then I'll have a horizontal. And those are the three different types of images that you will probably work with when you're converting products or making your own images. So just for the sake of speed of time, I've already went through and I copied and pasted all of the different images from the web page. So all of this stuff here from this portal, I went through and I opened up the artwork, right click, copy image, and then I went to Canva and pasted it just to get it into Canva. So I have all the stuff. I did all that at once so I can work with it. Now what I'll do is, for instance, I want to take this image here and I want to make a transparency so that I can change the background. I want a really cool decal for Fantasy Grounds. So right now I have this D&D logo. I might use that, but I may want to put myself in the mood when I'm doing a conversion. So, and it's not going to hurt to have that extra asset in Fantasy Grounds. So what I want to do here is I'm going to go up to options. And by the way, I'm using a blank campaign. This is a new campaign. This is not where I'm going to run adventures, just going to do work here. The only thing I have loaded are the SRD, and that's it. This is for the 2024 rule set. So when I'm building content, I don't normally need all the rule books. I could load some for reference and for parsing into Fantasy Grounds, but in this case, since I'm only doing the artwork right now, I wouldn't really need to load too much. Just have these for reference, and that's about it. So this window I have here, this was for the images. I could take that back, or I can take it down, or I can bring it back up, however you guys want. Excuse me. Excuse me. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to close the product guidelines for now. So I have this image of Astarion. Looks like he's getting ready to bite on this individual's neck here. So what I do is I'm going to just go and make a duplicate of this page. So again, this is Canva. This is a paid version of it. So I'm going to make a duplicate so that way I have two of them instead of just one. So let me delete that. I want to duplicate the page, not the image. So duplicate page. So now page 12 is going to be this image here. And what I want to do is click on the background remover. And that will, hopefully it will do a good job and move out all of the background. So this is what I was wanting to have left over. And then what I'll do is I'll take this and size it to a certain size. And then maybe even do some other things, like I might want to make this more compatible with being a, I guess to make it more like a decal. So what I'll do is in Canva, you have templates and such. So there's a piece here called elements. So I'm going to take this smoke kind of stuff. It's not really smoke, but it's almost like a mist. So I'm going to put that down here and kind of stretch it so that way it kind of looks like there's a misty fog type situation here. And then what I want to do is I'd find a picture frame of sorts, and I want to see if I can find anything that will stand out. Maybe it's just a cutout. I don't really want it to look clean, so I might just make my own, because I kind of want that torn page look. So I guess what I'll do is I'll say torn pages. We'll do something like that. And this is kind of the thing I was looking for, is to have these, there's frames, let's see, I want images. So something like this. So I want to look at the graphics here. So I kind of like this torn page look. And what I'm going to do with this is it's going to help me create this so that it will form a border. And then when I go to render the image, it will make it look like it's like not even part of the... Yeah, see, I don't like these yet. I don't want all the background, and I don't want it to really necessarily be square. So I don't mind that it's squared off, but I don't necessarily want it to look like perfectly, cut. Let's see, there we go. So I use something like this to give that illusion of having a torn page. And first, I'm going to extend this page here, this image, so that we utilize most of the space here. We get a rough idea of how we want to size this, because I kind of want the image to be, I don't want it huge, but I don't want it tiny either. So I'll take that and kind of put that in there, and then I'll take that graphic that I have, this thing here, just to give it that torn page look, right? And then I want to make sure that I have this thing located, because I want mostly his face. That's kind of what I'm getting at, is I don't really necessarily care about this as much, but I do want his face in it. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do, is frame this to where his face is showing. And I don't want this off-centered too much. So there we go. So take that, put that right there. And I don't mind that the horn is cut off and that, I don't see this entirety. And then I'll take this same image, and I guess I'm going to flip it. Let's see, vertically. That way the tears aren't exactly the same. So I'll do something like that. And then take this again and do the same thing. And I have that smoke still, which I wanted to kind of feature that as well. But I don't want that over the top of this, so I want to make sure that it's positioned back, but I don't want it covered by... There we go. So basically, this is going to give you that illusion of kind of a foggy mist. And then what I'm going to do is take the same torn pages and kind of go around this to where it looks more like a cutout, or like it was like a page that was ripped out of another book or something like that. So all I'm doing is duplicating these ripped page looks and making a border with it. So I'll do something like this and rotate it however you need it to look. So that's all I'm doing, is kind of going around this image and kind of making it somewhat of a circle. It's not, I wouldn't say it's a circle, but basically it's just like a border to go around the base image. And I'm going to do the same thing here. Just take this and kind of come down and just grab that corner there. Because I don't want the actual border of the actual image. And I might even make this smaller so I can work with it easier. And it also helps variations so they don't look symmetrical. So there's that. And I want to make sure these overlap a little bit, the tears. All right, so that you kind of get the idea. I'm taking the images and going to basically make a border around this so that it kind of has like a more of a natural look, I guess, and not so, not so predictable, and a lot cleaner looking. And let's see, let's take And the image that I have over the top of this transparency, I might go turn it down a little bit so it's not too too bright over the top of him. And I might even take and put like on the actual, see, this is what I was talking about, this smoke stuff. I have it to where it's kind of overlap, which is fine. And then I want to take and put this stuff here. Let's duplicate it. Huh. But anyways, this is kind of what I would do to edit this and kind of make it more unique. Okay, so this thing here, let's see. I wanted to go, there we go. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing is I'm going to make a duplicate, come back over here. I'll flip this over like that, like so. And then I'll just put it in place so that it will have like a sort of like a more of a natural torn look. Huh? That's weird. Oh, there we go. Okay, so kind of like that. So all I'm doing is putting this border around here so it looks more like a torn page. And let me rotate this a little bit. It'll come this way with it. So that's all I'm doing is kind of enveloping this original image here into this like cutout look. And this can be done if you have like Photoshop. There's plugins and brushes and stuff where you can paint around. It's probably a lot quicker, but I'm using this kind of like Photoshop. It's really just taking assets and covering up different sections of this. So then I'll take and make another thing here. And it is kind of a lot of work, but and I'll go the extra mile doing this for myself. So this is not for like a commercial conversion or anything. There we go. So this is kind of the, like the cutout view I was looking for. And I'll bring this over here and kind of put that there. So there we go. That's kind of what I was looking for. And then what you'll do is you can take this image and I'm just going to render this image. Let's see. So download. And then it says one of the elements has failed to upload. Okay, so I got to go back. I got to make sure that this image here is actually gonna work. Let's see, share, download. Yeah, so this is the PNG file that I don't know what this thing is, but it's got to be. I have no idea what this is. Anyhow, come back, share it, download it, but I'm only going to download this last page. So the current page, and then I'll download that image. So it's just going to download this collage thing that I've made here. And basically, that's going to be what I'm going to work with. And I get the background cut out so I don't have to have that. So taking that and going into my downloads folder. I'm going to grab that image that I downloaded. which is right here. All right, it's taking that. Now I'm going to take another page and drag that over. Or I can paste it, I think. Yeah. Okay, so here's the new image with the torn pages. And then all I'm going to do is just kind of make this full size. And then the tool here is you can remove the background. So this is what's nice about having the full version is you have these kind of utility tools. So that now I've cut out all that excess white background, and this is what I'm left with. So this what I would use probably for a decal. So one final touch that I might put on it is I'm going to actually shrink this just a touch so it doesn't touch the border here. And then I might put like a tight little shadow on here or something like that. So it may not look right, but what I want to do is kind of fuzz the edges up a little. So I want to take and probably add, let's see, I need to go to editing. And then I'm going to go to tools. Actually, let's see. Graphics. Okay, so edit. Okay, so in the edit screen on the left here, what I can do is I can change the filters on it, but I'm going to put it like a shadow on it, and I'm just going to lift it a little bit. This is the page lift, but I don't know if I want it to be, I want it blurred out a little bit more. And then I don't want the intensity so bright, and I don't want the distance so far away. So I just want a little tiny bit of that. And then what I'll do is stretch this out so that it fits more centered. There we go. Now I'm going to actually take this and probably just render this image, and we'll put it in Fantasy Grounds. So we'll see what it looks like. So I'll take that and share just this image. So share, download. We only want current page. And then I want to also make sure it says transparent background because I don't want all that white back there. So download that. And this is going to make it to where I'll have a decal. I went through quite a bit of work, but I wanted to show you a little bit of Canva and also the actual art itself and that sort of things. So now that I have that, if I go into my downloads folder, this is the actual art. And this is what it will look like. And I'll put this in Fantasy Grounds as the decal. So I'm going to take this image and I'm going to rename it. So this is an important part of creating content. So I'm going to put decal underscore Astarion. We'll say Astarion's Book of Hunger. So ABOH. And then I'll copy this and we'll go into Fantasy Grounds and we'll enter that information. So this is kind of a roundabout way to do stuff, but I want to show you the work that goes into this as well. All right, so I'll take that, put that there. And I think what I'm going to do is put this window back up so that you guys can see Fantasy Grounds. And then I'll put this actual browser preview back in here. Oops. And then you guys can see that more. So here's the browser preview. So what I'll do is I'll stick this thing, put it closer in. That way I'm not covering up the whole screen. There we go. Now you guys can see what I'm doing, and I don't have to keep opening and closing the browser. And I'll take the actual browser and put it back on my other screen. So you guys don't have to see that. There we go. So you guys will be able to see the preview window when I work with the art. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go to assets, which is where you're going to store your images, your tokens, maps, all that sort of thing. And we're going to click on images, and I'm going to click down here on folders. And what this is this campaign is a subfolder in the Fantasy Grounds back directories, and this will be an images folder. So I'm going to make a subfolder. I'll call this new folder, and I'll just say art, I guess. And then in that folder, I'm going to paste the image, and that's going to be our decal. Whenever you add or rename or move files around on the back end, you need to click this refresh folder assets. So now that I've done that, there's your campaign folder, and this will have any of the artwork that you've added. So click on this. Here's this. This is what it looks like. And I'm going to actually add this to the campaign images, even though I may not use it. I kind of like the way it looks. So where it says create map record is kind of a misnomer. So what I'm going to do is take and create a new category. So I'm going to click on this green plus button, add category. And then I'm going to rename group 1 as Astarion. Let's see. I'll just call it ABOH for short. I'm cheating here. And I'll say art. So this one is going to be just for the artwork, and then the other one, I'm going to separate it into maps. So take that way when you bring this out, you don't have to sort through a bunch of images. You just have a couple categories. You could do it by naming the files a certain way, but it's better if you have some groups too sometimes. Depending on if you have a lot or just a few. If you only have a few, then you only need one group. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and create map record, even though it's actually not a map. It's just it should say image record. But there we go. So there's the decal. That's what it looks like. And it's in the campaign now. And this is now I'm gonna make this my decal. So you can do this with almost any image. And if you already have existing content in Fantasy Grounds, you could do this as well. But in this case, I'm going to use the one that I created. So in Fantasy Grounds, if you go to the campaign options, this is just for me, for basically kind of get in the mood, kind of set the tone here. So instead of using this D&D one, I'm going to take background decal, and you have a thing called use empty decal. So that'll clear that. And now that I have this thing added to the campaign, another thing you can do in your assets is when you look at this preview, you can also set background decal. So this is now the background decal for this particular campaign. So that's kind of more of a dungeon master / artistic thing. You don't have to do that. But now I got this image staring at me in the face, and I kind of like it. And it's kind of blended in. See, it has these kind of rough edges on it, so it's not like a perfect square. I never did care for that kind of look. I could have cut off a little bit more here on the left, but I wanted to keep some of the shoulder. But that's basically your decal. So the rest of it is pretty much sizing and copy and pasting. So you got to be kind of meticulous on that and basically follow the rules that they put forth, so that you have a really well designed product. You don't want to have it to where everything is all messy and inconsistent, is basically what I'm trying to say. So that's what I've done in the first place. So that's just adding the images from D&D Beyond. So then this particular content, let's go back to D&D Beyond. Let's take a look. So this is a character option. So chapter 1, I'm going to go ahead and make that so that it's available for players. And what I would do, to be honest, to make this more useful to me and to my players is I'd separate that out to be a separate kind of campaign type thing. That way, when you go to load the content in on when you're playing and such, is you don't have to load the entire book. You can just load the character options if you're going to make PCs using the content that you're building. Because this particular book has different backgrounds, and it has different species, and it has kind of like class building stuff. So you have your origin feats, you have some general feats. So these are the types of things that you'll probably want for your players. So this is something that you'll have to consider when you're going to build content. So if your book has a mixture of both player and DM stuff, what you'll see in Fantasy Grounds quite often is if you go to a module, instead of having the SRD as one big book, they have it broken down into, as you can see, this is all the stuff for players. And then for items, they have it broken down here, and then the bestiary of all the monsters. So that's kind of one way to make it more modular, and you kind of break it down into bits. So if I wanted to have players building characters on the table, I don't need all this other stuff. I only would need the player data and maybe the magic items. If I just was working on encounters and such, I'd probably just use the bestiary, maybe the magic items. You could combine them all together for convenience for yourself, but what happens is when you go to activate this content as a player, if there's no player content, then you're going to have to build all of and do all the level ups for your players. So if you don't mind doing that, then that's fine. But if you want your players to have a little bit more agency, in which Fantasy Grounds, they don't have a whole lot of control over things except for the character sheet. So if you wanted to build that, then you would build a separate player module with just the player's content, and so on and so forth. So technically, I would be making 2 modules here. I'd be making, actually, I could break this down into 3 if I wanted to, but I think having it as 2 would be fine, because this also has an adventure in it. So when you go into D&D Beyond, or if you're working through a PDF, you want to kind of look through it to see what kind of content's in here. So there's character options, which chapter 1, I believe, would pretty much just be player related. Anything to do with the player, I would put all that stuff into Fantasy Grounds as a separate module. So I just call this player handbook, or not player handbook, but something like that, like character related options. So just like it says, vampiric character options. And then for chapter 2 and chapter 3, I would make that another module, because one talks about a little bit about Astarion's family, and it has some NPCs in here. So that would be probably a section I'd work on separately. And then I would work on chapter 3, which is an adventure. So you have 3 different parts of this book, essentially. And the way it's organized is you have your player option, you have your DM kind of encounter stuff, and then you have an adventure, which kind of combines everything together, essentially. And then, of course, you have your credits, your legal stuff, you know, your shout outs, all that stuff. So kind of depends on what you're going for. Like if you're making a like a homebrew type thing, campaign, you can kind of build the stuff as you go. You don't have to have everything ready and build it, kind of like I'm doing now. But if you're going to do a commercial product conversion, the best practice, I think, would be to go through and do all the artwork first, do all your editing, all this stuff I was doing in Canva, you know, like getting this stuff ready. I would probably make copies of each one of these art pieces here and use those within Fantasy Grounds as handouts if necessary, and then go through and create artwork with it. Like if I wanted to use this face for Astarion's token, then I would use Canva in this case to kind of create like a border and make like a token out of it. So you could do stuff like that, or even this picture down here, I might use this as a token. So it kind of depends on, you know, like what you're trying to do and how detailed you want to get. And it also has to do with the familiarity that you have with Fantasy Grounds. So it really depends on what's going on and what you're trying to do. But there's a lot of artwork in this book, this small book, I should say. It's not too small, but it's not huge either. But I do like the effort they put into the art, I would say. I'm not such a big vampire fan. I mean, I don't mind it. I think it's cool to have options, but if you want the Dhampir class to look good and to be fun to play with and such, then you want to put in that extra effort and time. But if you guys haven't seen already, if you are a Fantasy Grounds account holder and you have content on there, even if you've been away for a while, if you go to the Fantasy Grounds website and you log into your account, you look on top, they have this My Library, and anything that you own in the Fantasy Grounds catalog, once they have it uploaded, you'll be able to access it on your phone or your tablet or your computer. So for instance, you know, here's the D&D Monster Manual, and they're working on this as we speak. So just remember, this is a beta. It's not fully finished yet. They just released it out so that people have access to the content right away, but it might be missing some of the artwork. So if you don't see all the artwork in the reader now, you have to give them time to get this stuff put in. But I like how this chapters have come out over here on the left. And this is stuff you'll be able to look at, you know, whenever you can. Sometimes I'm sitting in my doctor's office. I'd like to be able to look at this and not have to worry about loading up Fantasy Grounds. So this is a really big step in the right direction from Smiteworks. And the idea that they made this free is really cool. So, you know, if you've been playing for a while and, you know, you're kind of upset that you already put a bunch of money into it, they did offer a freebie page that you can claim if you didn't already own some of the content, where you basically getting over $100 worth of free stuff. They figured, you know, they went out and they had to talk to the publishers and all that stuff, and they got a collection of items. Not all of it's D&D, and certainly some of the stuff you probably won't use, so they gave you a gift option. So it just depends on what your needs are and that sort of thing. But at least they tried. So anyhow, this will give you the ability to read through your content, and you don't have to load up Fantasy Grounds. So that's a step in the right direction. Bravo. And as Fantasy Grounds itself is free, so the base program and then the SRD is free. So if you're someone who has time, and more so than money, then by all means, learn how to enter this stuff into Fantasy Grounds, and then you'll be able to create your own books the way you want. And you're not relying on the interpretation of Smiteworks or the person who does the conversions. So it's kind of up to you, like how you want to do this. But this is just kind of the first step. This is doing the artwork, and that's really a lot of the time, I believe, is getting the art situated, formatted, cleaned up, etc. So if you want your conversion to go smooth, I would really work on that, because that's really where a lot of the effort is. So I want to go into, like, there's an adventure part of this. So after I do all the artwork, the tokens, so let's do a token here. So if I wanted to use this for token art, I'd probably just find a white ring and stick that over the top of this, so I don't have to reinvent the wheel and do a bunch of extra work. So if I wanted to use this image for my token, I'd probably use this image here and just black, or go over this with white. So let me go to elements, and let's go with a circular cutout. So I might do something like this. And then just use this as a way to kind of quarantine to get the image to where a state to where you can use it. So maybe you'll do something like this. I don't know. This may not be, what you want to use, but you'll get you'll basically figure it out when you get to that point of how you want to do tokens. Like sometimes I'll use like this ring here, and then I'll have the rest of it cut out. It just depends. Or you can use one of the portals, like you can use the token stamp. So let's see, token stamp, roll advantage token stamp. You can use this and do kind of the same thing. So if I bring over the assets here, and over here on the right is your preview window. So I'm probably going to make the image bigger because I want to use more of his face. And then I'm going to go ahead and decide to use, I like the silver. So we'll use something like that. And maybe shrink this a little bit. And then I'll probably use this really thin one because I don't want to lose a lot of that space. So something like that. And then the color of the ring itself, like the border, I like to make it like a silvery color. That way it stands out when it's on a map. That's why I was using this one, because it has that raised 3D look. But this one also has a way that you can set a custom border. So if you have your own borders, you can upload those. But this is another way to do that. But so basically tokenizing everything that you think you'll need for the adventure or your content. And then also making your handouts, all those sort of things. So another thing I like to do is make like a collage. So in this, let's see. So here is like all of the images that I copied and pasted out of these ones are for my phone. So they don't look as, I'm glad I used the website art because these don't look as good. They're not as high quality. They're kind of fuzzy looking. But these are images I took off the internet, like this token here, or this image. So this is from the video game. So I might use this for something. I also use AI to generate this poster. So you could do something like that. So take this stuff here. So maybe you'll use this as your social media poster. You know, you can do stuff like this to kind of make things a lot easier on yourself. And then you can use this for, maybe you're going to post a game or something like that. But I was going to use this for social media, but then I just kind of ran out of time. So I didn't really want to deal with it. But this is the sort of thing you can do to help speed up your processing and to kind of give you more stuff to work with. So I might take some of these images and make like a collage with it. Like this thing here. Maybe I'll take the background out of it. And then take this, let's see, let's try another one. So it looks like there's a Astarion in the background here. So we can take this and do the same thing, like we'll remove the background. And then we'll just take and put this stuff in other images and kind of make our own. So what I like to do is to have some of the background art so that in case you want it to have the same aesthetic. So when we do this type of thing, we can add different elements from the artwork. So we kind of make our own thing. And this is one of the things I believe that Adam had mentioned in the video, is to have more flexibility with the images when you're creating the actual module. So when you're building your own reference manual, having these types of images without all the background gives you more flexibility in where you're going to float them into the content. And then when you're doing an official conversion and you want your content to show up on the Fantasy Grounds book viewer, your library, this is the sort of thing you might want to have so that it's easier for you to look at everything, because it's really difficult to work with it when you already have background on it. So let's say for this one, I want to add, this is the one I wanted. So, okay, so this is the artwork that you may or may not want, depending on, you know, how you're going to do it. But you can do stuff like this, but then maybe you don't like the, you know, what's there already. So you can do all kinds of stuff. So taking this and then removing the background art. So you kind of make like a collage using the different elements from the artwork. So that way you're not stuck with just what they give you. So you can do different things with this, with the Canva and with other tools. So I think that's pretty cool. And then what I would do is take like this first image. I'm going to actually take these and just kind of put them in the background for now. And instead of showing Astarion, what I want to do is use this. And then what I'll do is I'll ask, because Canva has a little bit of AI built into it. So what I might do is ask it to build a background on it. So there's a function here. Let's see. Go to edit. And you can kind of expand. You can do this magic edit, or you can expand. So let me see what else we got here. Magic expand. So we want whole page. So what it does is it takes the existing art and kind of expands it to the size of the canvas. So it kind of made something kind of weird here, but if you only had like a fraction of the image and you wanted it to be the full page, you could do stuff like that. So it will take the edges of this artwork and build off of that and kind of give you a little bit more to work with. So that's just sort of some ideas that you can do with Canva. And I don't want this to be a total Canva, tutorial for Canva, but this is where a lot of the work is going to be. So when you're doing maps and all that sort of thing, you kind of have to, you have to decide, like, what do you want to do? All right, so I'm going to upload some files. So I'm going to go to design. I'm going to upload. And this is something that's kind of important for maps. So I don't want to place a canvas down or a flat area of workspace and then upload an image to it, because what happens is it's going to size the image to the size of your canvas. So you want to keep the image pristine. You want it to be basically however it was presented originally. So here's a player map that comes with this adventure. And what this will do is it'll keep the scale of the image. So the original image. So that's why I want to kind of stress this out. So I'm going to go and make a whole new image. So right now this is sized down. This is scrunched to fit the canvas, the size of this image. You don't want that when it comes to maps. So I'm going to go to design. Actually, what I'm going to do is come back here, go to create, and what I want to do is upload. And instead of going and uploading to a canvas or a blank spot, I'm going to actually take the original image and let that determine, the new project. So let's see here. So I want a new project, new design, upload files. I'm going to upload the player map. I want to create a new project. See, I don't want to use the canvas here, because that will change the size of the file. So upload from the computer. So let's go with, there's two layers. There's a player layer and then there's a GM layer. So it says use in a new design. That's what I wanted. And I don't think I'm gonna pick any of these. Let's see, custom size. Do I even want that? Yeah. See, this is the size that it is. So I want to keep that. So this is kind of where a lot of us go wrong when we're working with maps that come from another source, is you'll put it in a program that's going to scrunch it down so you can see the actual file within the parameters of your canvas. So this one now, this 3165 by 4096 is ideal for the maximum size for Fantasy Grounds. So this is about a 4K file, essentially. And we can actually go in, see, I want to take this, oops, 3165 by 496. Okay, so what I want to do is coming back to my, this is my work project stuff for ChatGPT. So maybe I'll bring this over so you guys can see what I'm doing. Okay, so for ChatGPT, I'm taking stuff like this content, and I'm going to go into my Fantasy Grounds stuff. So Fantasy Grounds content, this is the content I was using to help me convert the product. So I'm going to say in pixels, this will give me a rough idea of what size. How many pixels per inch for a file that has, what was that? $3165 4096. So that's the dimensions of the original image. I don't want to stretch or alter that as much as possible. So how many squares? And then I'll say around 50 to 100 pixels. We'll see. So this is the dimension of the original file. Okay, so that's, so how many squares? So if we do 50 per pixels per inch, it's going to be 63. Okay, so physical size you want to display. You tell me a target print size, I'll calculate the PPI for you. So what we'll do now is we'll see if that math works out. So we want to do is we'll take that image and we're just gonna put it in Fantasy Grounds. We're not even gonna mess with it. But these are the squares on here. So we'll see if we can line it up. But 1 square equals 5 feet. So what we're gonna do here is take this image, put this in there. So this will help you calculate like roughly like how many squares per inch, that sort of thing. It's important to know that because it won't line up properly if you don't get that right. It's going to be annoying. So this is the other challenge. If you use sourced materials and you're going to be using it in Fantasy Grounds, you want to make sure that you have the correct size image. And if you mess with it too much, it's going to potentially make it problematic for you when you go to line up the grid in Fantasy Grounds. So this would be my next step, is first doing all the art, and then I'm going to do all the maps, and then I'll start doing all the text, and then I'll start, so that you do it kind of systematically. And if I wasn't here explaining it and doing all this legwork, it wouldn't take me as long. So let me say 5 feet per inch. How many squares for this map? So I'm asking it, basically, look at this image. How many squares per 5 feet given the dimensions of the overall map? So 78 by 60. So now it's given me roughly the size of dimensions. So now I'm going to ask, what's the grid size required for the map in pixels? So it basically, you could use this to help you calculate it and kind of get your head wrapped around scaling, because that can really create a lot of grief for you when you go to put this in. So width and height, okay, that's squares. So it's 48 per square. So that's, or 62, 82 pixels, but that's distorted. The map uses a non-uniform border. Okay, so now it's saying it uses a 50 pixel grid, roughly. So we'll start with 50, which is the default. All right, we'll see. So when we go into Fantasy Grounds, this is the kind of thing you'll deal with. So if I go to images, I want to add, in the assets area, I want to add map. So I'm going to click on folder. And I want to make sure, images, campaign, folder. Okay, so I want to go and make a new folder. So this is going to be maps. And then what I'll do is I'll go back to my downloads folder and I'll take the images from there and put those in that folder without editing or altering them. These are straight from D&D Beyond, not from Canva. And I just put them in Canva so I can look at them in the same place. So you have the players and you have the DM. So this says, oops, Control Z. So I'm just going to underscore DM. So we have 2 different maps here. So now when I add those, I'm going to hit refresh. And now we got the other map here. So this is the DM map. We don't have to do anything with that. It's for reference only. So here's this player map. So what I can do is I have this art group here. So I'm going to go ahead and rename this as ABOH. And then I'm going to do the map. So ABOH maps. And that's kind of a way to keep it organized. It's a little extra work, but it's worth it in the long run. So I'm going to say create map record for this one. This is the player map. And then for this one, this is the GM map. Now, normally you don't need a GM map in Fantasy Grounds because you can make a layer that has the labels on it. So I may just do this to have it as a picture and not really actually use it as a map. But I want to be kind of thorough and use the images that are provided. So we'll see how this turns out. All right, so now that we have that, and we haven't altered the scale of the map, that's really important because it's just going to irritate the crap out of you. All right, so what we're going to do here with lining up the grid is we're going to check it. So we're going to start with 50, and then we'll see how it lines up. So we're going to click on grid, and we're going to turn on the visibility. So as you can see already, 50 is not quite enough. See, I can actually zoom this in and you come over here and see it's off. So if I come over here and butt that over, it might fix it a little, but it already looks like it's kind of distorted, like it's not even, yeah, see now it's off over here. So the whole map is already jacked up. It's not uniform. So like I can already tell like from here, it's not uniform at all. So that's the kind of thing that you're going to have to deal with Fantasy Grounds. So there is a third-party app that's on the Fantasy Grounds forums. It's called Map-Align. So you can use that to stretch the image so that it actually will fit the grid evenly. So this is kind of why it's kind of jacked up. And it, like they were saying, it has this border. And you can see the actual the grid that's on the map. It doesn't even line up for this. So it's kind of stretched. Like these are more like almost like rectangles now. So you could probably go off of this edge here instead of the edge of the image. So let's try that just for the sake of argument here. So if I right click and I go off of so it says layers, set grid. Now I can manually draw this. So I'm going to set this little compass, this star point here as best I can and left click and drag until you get close. And that's pretty close. So that kind of works. But as you can see, the actual image out here is not even. But now that I've done that, let's see, I'm going to right click and go to layer or view. Go to zoom to fit. But see, it's still off. Even by doing it that way, it looks good over here, but as soon as you start getting over to the right, it starts getting further and farther away. So this is kind of the thing that when you do conversions, you might have to face this. So like I said, I've done videos on Map-Align. Zacchaeus has done videos on this. Essentially, you have to stretch it out from left to right, top to bottom. It basically takes the image and kind of gradually kind of scoots it. It kind of stretches it from, you know, from X and Y. And once you re-export it, then it's a lot straighter. It's more even. So the way they did this is that the image that they uploaded and the image they provide was not made for virtual tabletop. And you'll find that a lot in different assets that you get over the years. When you buy them from like third party and they actually make maps for virtual tabletop, you don't normally have to worry about this as much. It's when you pull them out of a PDF and they're already stretched and they've got, you know, they'll stretch them or resize them to fit a web page. Once they do that, or to fit the layout of a PDF. Once they do that, it messes with the original, and the grid is kind of becomes like an afterthought. You know, they don't really care about that in regards to publishing and printing books. But when it comes to virtual tabletops, you're going to see that a lot. So I think I'm going to wrap this up now. I've kind of been yapping for about an hour. So what I'll do is I'll come back. If you guys are interested, let me know in the comments for part 2, and we'll start working with the text, and we'll do the MP3 or the MP3s. We'll do the NPCs, and then we can do the start building the reference manual. But these are the first steps. So I'm going to put all the maps in, get that all straightened out. I have Map-Align here already loaded, and this thing is kind of weird to work with at first until you get used to it. But basically, this is what you're going to have to do with maps like that are not perfectly square. You're going to have to basically learn how to use this app to stretch the map to where it's actually going to work. But how this works is you essentially draw a grid. So I'm going to go left click and drag to where you get close to the square that you want. And that kind of sets it up for you. And then you have to go in and make some fine adjustments. So what we suggest, and if you watch Zacchaeus' video, is you start from the left, work your way over to the right. Then you work your way from the top down to the bottom. So you have adjustments that go width and adjustments that go height. So what I'll do is I'll come through here and I'll look at this and say, okay, so this one is pretty good. These are pretty square. I only have to adjust them just slightly over to the right, but not over here. So what I mean is I'm going to shift the map over a little bit. And you can see where it starts getting further and farther off. So from left to right, these little lines, these things here, they start getting off. So you only need to adjust the lines that are columns right now. So we're just going to work from left to right. So the only thing I'm adjusting is not the whole square, just from the left to the right square. And right about in here is where it starts to get off quite a bit. So I'm going to shift it over just a touch. So you have these little increments. So if I do this and use this little plus sign, it just shifted it over just slightly. It may be hard to see that. Let me see if I can get this. So I just slightly shifted it over. You're going to play with that until the lines get where you want it to be. So that's from left to right. So then I'll come back over here. Now it's off over here. So this is what I'm saying. You got to play around with this. So stretched it here so that these lines are lining up. Maybe a little bit more. And that's all I'm doing here is taking this and just adjusting fine tuning here. So this is sort of stuff that, you know, it can make for a long day. So then I'm going to come over here and check these lines. So they're all off a little bit. And I'll come back over here and adjust this over slightly. Now come back. So I'm just going to go back and forth and keep adjusting this until all these lines line up. See, right now they're really far off the further you go over. You're just going to keep doing this until they get lined up. And I'm not going across the whole screen. I'm just, will eventually, but what I'm doing is kind of just adjusting and then moving over, adjusting, moving over. So you can see I'm just adjusting this viewable space. And I'm going to do the same thing. Just keep moving this over until these things get lined up. Yeah, that's going to take a lot of patience to do this, but this is the kind of map stretching thing that can drive someone bananas. And doing this all day is not fun. So I would only do this for a commercial product. I'd probably just end up making my own maps instead of messing with this. So this isn't too bad, right? We got it pretty close. It doesn't have to be exact. And smaller adjustments make it to where you can get that finer. Get that finer increments. But basically, you're just taking a section of the map at a time and kind of stretching it. You're not taking the both extremes and stretching the whole map. You're only taking this viewable space that I'm looking at and stretching that part of it. And that's what's kind of confusing when you first start using this. You're stretching the entire image, but you're only actually stretching like part of it at a time. That's too much. So just touch. There we go. So now that worked out. When I zoom out now, it's going to look good, or it's going to look right. for most part. Now I got to do the top to bottom. So now I'm going to do the vertical lines. And as you can see here, I'm going to start in this top right corner here. So navigate over to here. And right now you can see these are way off. So I'm just going to worry about this section right here. So now instead of doing the width, I'm going to do the height. So up here in this top right corner, this is what I'm going to be worried about. So I think I'll do a bigger increment. Nope, I moved the wrong thing. This one. Nope, wrong way. So that fixes this line from top to bottom. And now I'm just going to scroll down a little until I see it. If it's out of sync, I'm going to scroll down and see if it remains on track the whole way. Yep, see it starts getting off down here. So it looked good for like the first half of the map, but as I go further down, it's actually stretched in the wrong way, or it's kind of off. Yeah, see, it's starting to do it right in here. So what I might do is just a little incremental adjustment here. That looks good, so I brought that up just a hair. Now I'm going to go down a little bit more and just see where it's kind of hitting the very bottom of that shadow here. So I'm just going to bring it up a hair. Again, it's kind of getting off there, so I'm just going to click it once or twice, and there we go. So now it's getting better. And here again, it's off. So I'm going to go ahead and do it again. There we go. So maybe just one. Yeah, so once you get it from top to bottom, from left to right, that's how you have to use that tool. So now it's all lined up pretty much. If I come back here and check, now it looks like it's all lined up. So then I would just re-render this, and you can look through here. It shows you the width. So it looks to me like the original map was like around 100 by 100. But since it has this weird offset here, the scaling, it's more like rectangular. So we can output this. So the output tile size is 70. And we're not going to render this red stuff. It's just going to be 70. That's our output pixel size. So we'll hit, and then the map size itself, let's see. We could change it to be 100, but I don't know. Let's see. 100%, but then that makes the file output size a lot bigger. So now the original width, if I change that to 100% or whatever it was, now it makes this file size even bigger. So you got to watch that too. So I think 75 is probably the ticket. So it was 20, 40, 75. Nope. So this only reduces it a little bit, and then it changes the output size to 75 pixels per inch. So that way you keep some of the quality, but the map output size won't be as large dimensionally. So this 3165 by 4096 is almost at the top of the recommended 4K. This size here, this 2475 by 3225 is more ideal. So it's 33 by 43 in squares. So then what you do is you save this. And what we'll do is, this is a JPEG, so we can actually even make it smaller if we wanted to by converting it to WebP. So I'm not even going to use this map because this is all jacked up. So this is the kind of stuff you're going to have to deal with when it comes to doing commercial conversions. Like I said, if I do this for myself, I might go through all this work, but technically, I don't know if it's worth it because that would irritate me to no end. If I'm just doing this for me, that could really kind of throw you off. But basically, that's how that would work. If you're gonna use an app that's going to help you, that's probably a good tool. So you need a text editor. You're going to need a photo editor. In this case, I'm using Canva as my photo editor. It's not really a true one. I'll use GIMP also. So if you can't afford Adobe Photoshop, use GIMP. And then make that sound easy. Oh, just use GIMP. Well, you have to kind of practice with GIMP too to get a feel for it. And then, of course, you want to use the map align if you have a grid that's way off. And that's why you don't want to grab these off the internet because they're already messed with. Like, you're not getting the true files. You're getting just you're getting a stretched version of it. So it fits a web page or so that it fits a PDF layout. If you actually get the files from the artist itself, or you get the InDesign files or whatever it is, the source, that's what you want for maps. It's nice to have the images that way, but they're usually not as critical as the map because a map, if it already has a grid on it, is going to be frustrating. So that's something you're going to have to consider, when you're doing conversions. Like, do you want to go through all that? That could be dramatic. So that's just something that comes up, when you're doing conversions. That's something you're going to have to deal with if you're going to do that type of work. So this thing here, now I can take this and I'm going to put it in the Fantasy Grounds folder. I'm not even going to bother with this player one. This one sucked. All right, so now what I'll do in Fantasy Grounds is I'm going to go back to that asset list and refresh. And then I'm going to go back to the images. I'm going to actually delete this because this actually doesn't exist anymore. And then I'll go back to assets, and this is the image that I want to play with now. So what we're going to do is create the map record. And this actually has some of the dimensional information. So 75 pixels. So now when I go to put the grid on there, it should be a lot closer. So what I'll do is I'll go to grid, turn it on. And as you see, it's not lined up. It's all jacked up. 5. It should be closer. And now I just have to, no, not 75, 25, excuse me. No, what did I do wrong here? Well, it's lined up, but I don't have the right scale. Yep. So that's 70.